There are likely more than 20 plus state of the art vibe coding tools today, and the number just keeps growing week over week. And the problem isn't that these tools don't work, but it's nobody really understands when to use which tool for what use case. So I'm mapping out exactly when to use which tool in the next 15 minutes. It's going to be categorized by use case and experience level. So let's first start with the simple stuff. Okie dokie. So the way that this is structured is I want to walk you through the entirety of the vibe coding tools that I feel are useful for people to know about. And the way I'm going to map this out is we're going to map it by use case and also experience level. So we'll break it into two categories. And the use case, I think, is going to be one of the more important pieces because oftentimes when people reach for these tools, they're easily overwhelmed. So they need to know which tool to use for what situation. And before we touch any of the tools or talk about any of the tools, I want to show you a quick chart that I think depicts how these tools scale up both in complexity and impact. So we have two axes. One axis is scaled impact, the other one is complexity. So we have impact for yourself, impact for many. For complexity, we have simple and then complex. As you move up this curve, the tools become more complex, but at the same time, the trade off here is you're likely going to have a chance to impact many more people with the applications you're building. But I do want to emphasize many people because down here, you can have a huge impact on yourself by using the simple tools effectively. So don't be discouraged by this if you're just able to use the simple tools because you can radically change you and your team's work and be able to actually automate and increase your productivity by just not just a few hours or days, but maybe even weeks. That out of the way, let's look at our first level. So our first level is simple chat. Everyone's going to have access to this. So anybody that has access to ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, Gemini, etc., you're going to be able to use these tools. And there's different categories of recommendations I would have for using these tools. The first one we'll talk about is quick automations. So a lot of you have different types of tasks working either inside of your business or as an employee, where you're taking data from an Excel sheet, putting it into a CRM, or you're copying data from one platform to another, or you're doing a mundane task of filling in something over and over. If you do a simple task on a repetitive cadence, then you should really consider seeing if you can automate this. Now, you may be like, well, I don't know if I can. And if you can't, this is a great question to ask AI. So in this case, what I would do is I'd recommend asking ChatGPT, Cloud, whatever tool you have access to. And in this case, now you have access to ChatGPT 5, which is pretty dope. And when you ask it, what you're going to want to do is you're going to say, hey, this is the exact process that I do. I go from point A to point B, and I use these exact systems. Now, it's important to be as specific as possible on the context and provide as much context as possible. In this case, I'd recommend using dictation, just talking out your thoughts, being specific on the CRM, on the Excel sheet, the data inside of it, the operating system you're on, anything you can share, share it. And when you do that, ask, is it possible to automate this? And if so, how complex will it be? And you can even give context on your level of understanding for complexity. Say, hey, I'm a non-techie person. I don't have much tech experience. And in that case, it's going to help you decipher what to do next. That's the first use case, automations. Now, the next use case here is going to be charts and diagrams, or better yet, we can bundle these into presentations. So a lot of you are presenting to your employees, to your managers, to your clients, etc. And when you present, you want to have different types of visuals that compel or convey interesting ideas. The first one here is using data. So you have data you want to share, where you can create charts and diagrams effectively both with ChatGPT and Claude. From my experience, so far, I found Claude to be very useful. That being said, I'm sure ChatGPT will catch up since they just released ChatGPT 5. But the way to use this is you have a data set, you give the data set to the AI and say, hey, I want you to create a compelling diagram or a compelling chart that shares the single point that I want to make to this person in this presentation. It'll create that slide or create that specific chart for you. You can put that into your PowerPoint and you can present with that. What I think is even more interesting, and I think will become maybe even the standard for presentations going forward, are things like this. So, what you're looking at right now is a static website that I've created that has compelling animations and visuals and all that types of stuff, all baked into a website. So I can then talk to people through this website that's written completely by code. And the reason this may become the new norm is that there's so much more flexibility in what you can create with code instead of just limiting yourself to PowerPoint or Excel sheets. So those are just some of the use cases that you can use. And one pro tip is if you do create one of these quick automations, and you may ask yourself, well, how do I deploy this on my system? How do I actually put this into real life outside of ChatGPT? That's a great question to ask AI. You can ask it, say, how do I deploy this script on my local machine? Give it the context of the operating system, so Windows or Mac OS or whatever else, and then give it the constraints you have for your system, and it'll give you a step by step guide of exactly how to do that. holding your hand throughout the entire process. Quick pause in your regular programming. This video is brought to you by moi. So below is a free link to a 30-day AI Insight series where you'll get 30 days of 30 insights in your inbox showing you exactly how to use different tools in your day-to-day work and in your business. So if that's at all interesting, check out the link below. With that being said, let's dive back in. That's level 1, and that's going to be most users. Now, the next one is level 2. So with level 2, this is all about visuals. And luckily, a lot of people will be able to do this as well. Reason being is that the tools inside of this category of vibe coding, they've abstracted away most of the code, which is great for most people because they don't need to see that. So we have V0, Lovable, bolt.new, Replit Agent. I'd say of these, I've found Lovable as one of my go-tos for this, but you can try different tools to see which one resonates most for you. The thing I'll call out here is the code that's written by these tools most effectively is down here. It's going to be prototypes and MVPs. So these are going to be different types of things that you can create mock-ups, fake versions of an application to then share with somebody else to get feedback on, to get buy-in on, or something along those lines. And the reason you can do that with these tools so effectively, which is probably one of the best features of these tools, is they often have a one-click deployment. So you've written all your code, you've created your application, so it could be a web app, a mobile app, or something else, and you're likely going to have a little button at the top right-hand corner that says deploy. When you select this, it's going to give you an option to sign up for a few things. Once you've done this, you'll click deploy, and it's going to create a URL. And this URL is something you can send off to anybody on the internet. Once they have access to the URL, they can go to the app, they can play with it, they can interact with it, and they can give you real-time feedback. And this is probably one of the most compelling parts of this level and what separates it from others. Another thing to consider here is that you can export the code. So say once you've created your prototype and you're ready to take it to the next level, you want to add logic, backend, etc., then you can start to export all the code and you can take it to the next level, which is where we'll add proper logic and backend associated to it. So this is our second level. Our third level, so this is where the professional starts to kick in. And now this is where things also start to get more complex and their learning curve gets steeper. Reason being is that this level, we're going to have an IDE where you can create real applications with real logic, real backend, something that can be deployed and scaled. Now, I'm sure many of you watching this, if you're not necessarily techie, you may ask, what is an IDE? Well, it's basically Google Docs for code, where a lot of developers, they spend a lot of time inside of IDE writing and testing code, similar to what you do when you're writing documents or in Excel or PowerPoint, etc. It's just a tool of choice to do a thing. And here are just some of the top tools in this category currently. Sadly, I think Windsurf probably will become obsolete eventually. And if that happens, we still have multiple options. So we have Klein, Cairo, and then Cursor. Of these, Cursor is by far the best currently today. Reason is it has many features that many others don't. It's more advanced. It's been in the market for longer, and a variety of other reasons. So if you're going to choose one of these, I'd recommend starting with Cursor. And there's a few pros and cons associated to using a tool like this. It is advanced, and it is somewhat user-friendly, but there are some downfalls. So we'll start with the downfalls first. So the issue with these tools is they require some knowledge. So meaning you need to be able to set up this IDE effectively, because if you don't set it up effectively, it's going to work either against you or in chaotic ways where you can't control what's happening. Once you learn how to configure these tools effectively, it will work not just in with you, kind of alongside you, but also way more efficiently. But yet again, to do that, there's a learning curve to do this. And also, it's ideal to have some form of code knowledge because you can direct the AI in different ways if you see it going in the wrong direction. Now, with all that being said, luckily, none of this is necessary. We can outsource all of this to AI, meaning we can ask questions along the way and we can speed up our learning process because we have a super intelligent being to assist us in that process. Now, what about the pros? There are many pros, but I wanted to call out two that I think are the most important. One is there's really strong human oversight. And this is what differentiates this tool from many other advanced tools. When I say this tool, I'm referring to IDEs. And that's when the AI is coding, you can see all the very specific changes that are occurring. And here's an example. So down here, we have an AI. And so actually we have two dots, right? So this is where we're starting and this is where we want to end. Ideally, the AI is going to follow a straight line path to this endpoint. But oftentimes it'll start going in this direction. And when it goes in this direction, we can see it's heading in this direction. We can stop it and say, hey, you're going in the wrong direction. Let's try to divert this way and go right towards the direction we're trying to head. And this is the importance of having human oversight because you can see the code being written throughout this process. As it's being written, you can pause it and redirect it as needed. That's one benefit. The other benefit is version control, or in simple terms, being able to undo mistakes. So in Google Docs, Excel, PowerPoint, you can do undo. You can Control Z, Command Z, or just press undo. You can undo a thing and revert back in time. Well, within Cursor, they have a restore function. So if AI goes off the rails, so in this case, say the AI is going in this direction and you don't realize it's going in the wrong way and it ends up here. Well, you can see that this is completely off mark where we were heading over here. Luckily, with the undo button, we can say, okay, I want to undo and I want to revert all the way back to here. I want to start over. And then we know that it messed up in this direction for a reason. So now let's go this way instead. And I can't stress enough how important it is to have an undo feature that's easily accessible and everybody can get access to without having to do a bunch of configurations for. That's probably one of the most important reasons why when I talk to anybody about trying to adopt these tools to build enterprise level applications that are production ready, to start with these tools, specifically Cursor, because of that feature. So that's level 3. Now onto level 4. So this is hardcore mode. So a lot of people that are deep in tech, you can see a lot of them talking about specifically Claude Code, and this is a terminal-based AI agent. So it's not inside of an IDE or a product that you can kind of see a lot of things that are happening. It's just inside the terminal. And that in itself, I would say, is a pretty big negative for a lot of users that want to get access to these tools. And that's one of the dangers here is that it's not beginner friendly, mainly because it's based in the terminal. There's a lot of configurations you need to do and a lot of tools and commands you need to understand to get the most out of the tool. But with that being stated, that means that if you know how to use this tool effectively and you can configure it in a way that's useful for you, then this is likely going to be one of the most advanced options that you will have access to build very complex applications with minimal errors by the AI when it's coding on your behalf. As of today, most of the most advanced engineers that I know are all heavily leaning on Claude Code to build complex applications for them. They're doing this because of the point that I just made. You can have full control over what's being built. Also, the AI inside of here, for some reason, magically, I'm sure there are very specific reasons as to why, it can reason over long periods of time, call many tools without making too many errors. Why is this useful? Well, if I give the AI a complex task, so C is our task, and it has to complete this task, and it's going to take a while for it to achieve it when it gets to the final endpoint. When it's going through this process, it's going to have to call a bunch of tools along the way to achieve this task, and it has to call the right tool in the right order at the right time to achieve that task. Well, for instance, in Claude Code, it's very good at doing that. It's very agentic. So people use the term agentic for. And this is an attractive proposition for a lot of developers. So that's why a lot of developers are using this because they can create not just one AI, but they can have multiple AIs coding in succession to achieve a more complex application for them. And the likelihood of it failing is pretty low based off of its ability to call tools effectively. So that's the big pro, the power. But as always, with great power comes the ability to shoot yourself in the foot. It's inspired by Spider Man. And why is that the case? The last thing I'll call out here is it's hard to undo. So this goes to the point as to why I wouldn't recommend this tool for most users, unless you're already technical and you know how to use Git. And if you don't necessarily know what Git versioning is, then I'd recommend not using this tool and using a different tool. But the TLDR here is that we don't have the ability to undo things. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to use a tool called Git. And on a consistent basis, every time a minor improvement is made or a feature is created and we've tested it and validated it, then we want to push that code to a Git tree. So say this is time. Time is progressing. And each one of these marks here is a checkpoint. So I have to make these checkpoints as I go. And if I don't make a checkpoint or I forget to make one, and the AI keeps going and it makes a mistake here, I'll have to revert all the way back to this checkpoint here because I forgot to make 2 here. So it's a very manual process and you can create hooks and different commands, but I've found consistently they don't work as they should. So it's still a somewhat daunting and manual task to do. That's why I recommend most people just play around with cursor instead. But if you like to go on the wild side, be a little risky, check these tools out. And finally, we have team players. So I was going to leave this section out, but I knew a lot of people would be upset. So I will leave it in. We have enterprise only. So these are basically team oriented tools, tools that are meant for enterprises. So developer teams larger than probably 25 to 50 people. And we have two options. So we have Codex and Devon, both of which are targeting enterprise companies. The reason that these are team oriented is that the ability to complete certain tasks, the tasks they complete are very micro in nature. So what they're doing is they're targeting tickets. So in a ticketing system inside of an enterprise, you have a bunch of product managers, people in finance, et cetera, whatever else, customer service, and they're sending questions and tickets associated to the product that need to be improved. So these could be tests, bug fixes, et cetera. So for these micro tasks, they can have a tool like Devon sitting inside of their automated flow. Every time a ticket comes in, Devon picks it up, creates a fix for it, and then puts it up for the developer to then review. Developer reviews it. If they're happy, then they put it in production. This is ideal for small bug fixes, but not more complex applications that we want to build if we're a small startup, medium-sized company trying to automate stuff inside of our business or something else. That's why this is enterprise focused. Also, it's cloud-based. So when you send it off, it's going to go into the cloud and do its thing, and it's not going to be local on your machine, which has both pros and cons. The primary con here in Pro, I guess, is that it's autonomous or more agentic. What does that mean? Well, when I ask for instance, Codex to do something for me, it's going to go off and do that thing without me being able to even watch what's happening. And I can watch some of it, but it's pretty abstracted away. So I have to have a lot of faith in the AI to effectively build this without any errors or failures and do it in the direction that I expected. And with Codex even further, they take it even a step further and they have multiple agents all working on a variety of different tasks all kind of by themselves as like a swarm or an army of AIs that are working on your behalf. And then at the very end, when they're finished, then you have to go back and check their traces to see they achieved what you wanted to achieve. So this, for instance, is going to be the future of coding. Not currently. We need AI that's much more intelligent and that can think over long periods of time. But maybe GPT-6 or GPT-7 can do this. For now, that's why we focus on smaller tasks. And then at the end, I have our total map. So you can see all the different levels and the different categories of how I bucketed this. And if you look at these, we have the different tools inside of it, the use cases, which I feel is the most important. So if you have a specific use case in mind, go to this, look at the levels and say, okay, I'm going to go to this one because that's what I'm trying to achieve. In addition to that, if I broke this out by market share, so if we had different types of users based off of who has access to AI today, I'd say likely 80% of users should likely probably just stick with level one with chat tools because there's a huge impact you can make in your daily life and your team's life if you leverage these tools effectively. Then we have level two. This is probably going to be, I'd say 20% of users that are building prototypes and or visuals that are just compelling for different reasons. And then I'd say probably we have like 10% that's divided up between the terminal and the IDE. More should be on the IDE side because like I said, this is hardcore mode. If you're very technical, that makes sense for you. And then enterprise is going to be a very small percentage. So let's say like 3% or so. I think we went way over 100%, didn't we? 80, 100, 110, 113% because we try hard here. So let's try to undo this. Let's try this again. Let's do the math correctly. So let's do like 70%, then we'll do like 15%, then we'll do 10% here divvied up for these two, more on this side, less on this side, and then we'll have what's left, 5% for enterprise. There we go. I could do math. And if you enjoyed that, please reshare it with your friends. And also, like I said earlier, below is a free link to a 30-day AI Insight series. So if you want to get 30 days of 30 AI Insights, check the link out completely free. Also, while you're down there, check out another link to see if there's a fit for us to work together. There's different types of options. And with that being said, I'll see you next time.